Here's what was going on. The school board decided that they, instead of actually engaging with the parents in a back and forth question and answer session, that your questions, all the answers to your Common Core questions, would need to be written down on paper and then handed in to the school marm. Now, with this method, sure, maybe it's a little more orderly, but it also removes the possibility of follow-up questions on the spot, takes the microphone out of the crowd, takes the emotion out of the room, which I guess could be argued, good thing or bad thing. But what happens is you suppress and minimize any possible objections. Okay, so you could play that either way. You could be, okay, well, they're just trying to move things along, make sure people don't get long-winded, and make sure nobody gets angry. But then they screened and edited the questions in advance. So for over an hour, the crowd had to listen to the county superintendent talk about how wonderful Common Core was. Then they showed a video on how great Common Core is. Then they started reading some of the softball questions, and that's when Robert Small couldn't take it anymore. But he stood up in total self-control, and here's what happened. Watch.
I went to Essex Community College. I finished at the University of Maryland. And now I moved my family out to Howard County because of the reputation of the schools.
Okay, so in all fairness to other parents who submitted questions, I do want to be fair, sir.
Community college. And, it's so
sir,
my question is, how are we talking about college? You're not talking about which colleges. You're not preparing them for World Harvard. Okay, my question is, how is lowering America's education standards to prepare kids for community college? Because that's what it's all about. Because you mentioned before that, the emphasis is, and I have some stuff here to quote before this guy tries to carry me out.
Okay.
But, hey, parents, take control. This is not a CNN political debate. Let's go.
Let him ask his question.
This is what I will say, in fairness to everyone who asked questions, we do have some that are dovetailing to that.
Let him ask his question.
So the next question. So this is a dovetail.
Don't stand for this. You're sitting here like cattle. You have questions. You confront them. They don't want to do it in public.
Okay, the next.
Excuse me, buddy. Hey, this is America. This is not a CNN political debate. You're mad as you can go where you want. Hey, that's right. Parents, you need to question these people. Do the research. It's online. Top 10.
Okay, so the next question. The next question to our panelists. The next question to our panelists is Dr. Lowry.
I'm not an activist. I don't have experience. I'm a parent. I have a right to speak.
Okay, so
you're asking softball questions.
And again,
look at this.
Be very respectful to everyone who asks questions. And so the next question really is, Dr. Lowry, to you, because you work so closely with 2- and 4-year institutions. Is the Common Core state standards implementation by Maryland an attempt to filter students to the community college?
And now they're concerned.
Okay, now did he look at all out of control? That guy was intimidating him. He was manhandling him. This is the way it used to happen in Mother Russia, not America. Now here's the kicker. The reason why I couldn't sleep on Friday is because this guy, the father, was charged with second-degree assault of a police officer, faces a $2,500 fine and up to 10 years in prison. Excuse me? Show me the physical threat. Show me the assault. The assault happened the other way around, as the officer was violently yanking him by his arm in an attempt to remove him. Remove him from what? What was his crime? Asking a question about what's going to happen with his children? What law did this man break that warranted such a use of force? I'll tell you what it was. Doing this. Doing this. You know this picture? You know what that is? That's Norman Rockwell, a guy standing up in a school board meeting and speaking his mind. That's what Norman Rockwell said was one of the 4 freedoms, stating your opinion. As Small was being dragged out, he said, "Don't stand for this. You're sitting here like cattle." Mr. Small's admonition to the herd is spot on. Where were the teachers? as he was being removed. You know, the ones that always teach about it's wrong to bully people. Did no one feel that he was being bullied? Did not one person have the decency to say, stop, stop, stop? Up there on the board, no one said, let's stop. One woman taping asked that question. Another woman stood up, said something to the guard to no avail. But other than that, nothing. Nothing. We have seen in the last few months teachers stand up for a colleague who sexually molested and raped an 8th grade student. But the teachers don't stand up against this? No one, none of the parents dare ask a question out loud or directly address the almighty school board without writing it down on paper first. Otherwise, it'll turn into the Salem witch trials. Cattle. Time to get out of the herd, because you're being led to slaughter. Perhaps people were afraid to speak because they were afraid of being dragged off by a police officer. And so the option is I sit here with my mouth closed, like cattle. And when nobody is there to stand up for you, it's because you weren't there to stand up for everybody else that was dragged off. I just want you to put this in perspective. It was 12 years ago. We're still the same Americans. It's not like some past generation. We're still the same generation that 12 years ago, we were inspired by the rallying cry of the typical American that said, let's roll. We've gone from let's roll to cattle in 12 years. Don't tell me that we haven't lost our country. Don't tell me that we haven't been fundamentally transformed. I don't even recognize Americans anymore. Now, here's why I want you to remember this video. I want you to write this down. If you keep a journal, I want you to write this down because you're going to look like a prophet to your kids someday. Believe me on this. Do you remember when I was at Fox and I told you about the fruit cart vendor in Tunisia that set himself on fire? And I said, that guy, nobody will understand. Everybody will call me crazy, which they did. But that will lead to a watershed moment, and it will spread across the Middle East. And it will turn everything into chaos. And it did. Write it down in your journal. This is a watershed moment. It doesn't matter if this guy goes to jail or not. Did people learn their lesson? It's dictatorship 101. Make someone an example, and the rest will stay in line. The next meeting of that school district, they should have 10,000 people there, but I doubt they will. To quote Mr. Small, is this America? I don't know.